What's up, everyone? I'm James Baney, and I am here probably for the last time to do the Bad Batch reaction show because this is the start of Season 3, but Season 3 is the last season of Bad Batch, so we're told by Lucasfilm. We got 3 episodes all dropping on the same day, so I'm going to be reviewing those 3 episodes right now, and I'm going to be doing it like episode 1, then episode 2, then episode 3, so that if you're only part of the way through it, you can watch the video, stop, and then move to the next one when you finish those episodes. But episodes 1, 2, and 3 all drop today, and I'm going to be talking about them. Let's get started. The first episode is called Confined, and it's going to take us right where we left off with Omega and Crosshair on Mount Tantis. Now, what I'm going to do with these episodes this season is I think I'm just going to kind of give a general overview of what happened in the episode, give my favorite part, give my least favorite part, and maybe a little tidbit here or there along the way. But the general consensus of this episode is we kind of see what life has been up to and how it's massively mundane for a lot of the process, but there's some stuff going on with the blood, and Nala Se doesn't want Omega to give it up, and so it's been consistently kind of hidden that they don't ever want to get her sample, which is interesting and will probably play into the future. Now, my favorite part about this episode was actually just learning the fact that that's gonna maybe be the thing for the season, is that the Empire has sort of been looking into trying to move the M count from one carrier to another specimen or body or whatever. And we all know that that's leading to the sequel trilogy. So it's really interesting to kind of see all of the parts in play. I think that's how all these shows go. But I think that that is probably one of the more interesting things, because when I first heard it, I kind of did think of Palpatine and other stuff like that, but I actually kind of thought of Grogu, and I was like, oh man, like what time is this? When would this be happening? And I was like, I know it's still like a long ways away from the Mandalorian, and even in the Mandalorian, they were still like checking his M count and all that, but it did kind of make me think like, well, this is post 66. I don't know if like, we know he got away, but like how long was he away? I don't know. It just kind of seems interesting that we may or may not see Grogu in this season. I'm not really sure, but it got me interested, and that was probably my favorite part. Now, my least favorite part for this episode was probably just in general that it was kind of boring. I expected the first episode back to be big and exciting and see everybody, but it just kind of was like a daily life of like what's been happening in Mount Tantis in this like laboratory and stuff. So it was kind of boring, and I think that kind of wraps up episode 1. Nothing really crazy, but I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. Episode 2 is called Paths Unknown, and the interesting thing about episode 2 is, boom, now that's a Bad Batch episode. That's kind of what you expect. Now, I know we've left Omega and Crosshair and other things like that out of it, but the core group has always been these clones, and I know there's only a few of them left. Echo's not there, Tech's obviously missing, gone, whatever the story is with them, but this is a Bad Batch adventure. This is what they do to survive day to day, and they go on a mission, and things are exciting. My favorite thing out of this episode, though, and it's kind of strange, was like, I actually got really excited when they were going into this laboratory facility and they found these like weird creatures. When the creatures were like spawning and stuff, I was like, this is horror. Like if this was actually a live action movie put in theaters or whatever on a streaming service or whatever, this would legitimately be so scary to a lot of people. They look awful. They look terrifying. They were these oh my gosh. It kind of surprised me. Took me by surprise that it was as creepy as they came. You know, they looked alien and scary and horror, and I don't know, I just found that really interesting. And then obviously that led to more with the vines and the big creature at the end, which was scary as well, but not even as scary as those little creatures walking around. Creepy as all heck. I loved it. Least favorite thing about this episode, honestly, for me, probably just the story with the kids. Now, I'll be fair. I think that obviously this is how Disney is with these, especially with the animated stuff. Characters that maybe don't seem to make a lot of sense when they first come into the show make sense later. These are 3 just regular clone troopers, nothing special about them. They're young, and they were part of the facility. Now they're all like, they're free and they're living their own lives. And I think that they're obviously being taken back to the island now, but I think that they're going to play a bigger role in the long run of the series, so we'll have to wait. But right now, their story seemed a little bit boring. But I will give an interesting tidbit. When you look at the credits, you notice that Daniel Logan voiced one of them and not the other two. So what's interesting about that for me is that means that this is the first time Daniel Logan is actually doing something in the Bad Batch. And it makes me think that we're finally going to get Boba Fett in this season, and that excites me. Please, I hope it happens. If he's on board, I don't know why he didn't do all three. Maybe it was a scheduling thing, but if he's there and he's involved to get even to that degree, I think that points to him doing something bigger later in the season. Come on, Boba Fett, let's do it. I want to see it. Finally, episode 3. Episode 3 is called Shadows of Tantis, and this one was, in my opinion, the best episode of the 3, even though I liked a little bit of 2 more than 1 because of the location and other things like that. This one brought in the Emperor and really elevated the like I said before, I think the plot for this thing is like Omega has the proof or the evidence that M-count blood can be transferred, and it's just an exciting episode for those reasons. The Emperor looks amazing. I loved like the Royal Guards. I loved all of the conversations that he had with Dr. Hemlock. I think one of my most exciting parts is learning that he wants to be the scientific minister, and he wants to lead the Imperial Science Corp into this new unregulated thing. It all seems so cool. It seems like his goal is to give the Emperor exactly what he wants, because as the Emperor puts it, they have the same vision and he is so brilliant, and the Emperor wants to give everything to him so that he can unlock this Sith magic, if you will. And I know magic is maybe not exactly the right term, but the project is called Project Necromancer, and a necromancer is the use of magic, but it's with the context of the living and the dead. And it's just all so interesting when you think about moving sort of the blood and the midichlorian count over to another body, and the Emperor is here like overseeing it, saying this is the utmost important thing that the Empire does. It must succeed. We have to do this, and we all know where it's going. It's just all really cool stuff, and I think like those types of things get me excited about the Bad Batch. It's another thing that sort of fills in the gaps, but in this way, it's not just like, oh, it fills in the gap between like this story and this story. It's like this thing is really like the Clone Wars was to the prequels, because people didn't really like those movies. And then when they watched the Clone Wars, it's like, oh, it makes a lot of sense now. I feel like Bad Batch sort of gives us that opportunity to say that about the sequels. Like, okay, you might not like the sequels, but when you watch this and this and this, and Bad Batch being one of these things, that like it starts to paint the picture of how the sequels actually make a lot of sense and how that's just the story. And it just gets me excited. But I will say there are still downfalls to this episode a little bit. I'll give mine. I just don't really care about Batcher the dog. That was part of the first episode, and it wasn't that exciting. I like that the point was that, you know, she showed mercy to the dog, and then the dog repaid it back and was able to save her. But it saved her multiple times, and I feel like even at the beginning, it was like a very vicious creature, and I mean, it's an alien dog, so it's making it up, but I'm just relating it to animals. Generally, animals just they aren't that forgiving that quickly or whatever, especially when they've been in the wild for like months later. I don't know. It just seemed a little strange. All of a sudden now it's like a totally tame dog that is just part of the crew now. I don't know. It seemed a little strange, but yeah, Batcher shows up, saves them multiple times, and then they fly away, which is great. I love that they escape, and I love the way they escape too. Very exciting when, you know, they finally figured out, yo, she has like the perfect transfer and we have to have her alive. And Dr. Hemlock is like, don't shoot them, like absolutely minor setback, but we have to have them alive. It's of the utmost importance. So everything relies on that. And it kind of makes you wonder what happens, right? Because the stuff with the Emperor does end up happening. So what happens to Omega? Where's this story going? I don't know. I'm excited. That's episode 3. I'm coming back next week to do episode 4 when it goes live on Disney Plus. But after you watch the episode, come back, talk to me, and make sure to keep up with my other show, The Resistance Broadcast. I do that with John and Lacey, and we do 2 episodes a week. One of them is live, so we're talking about Star Wars news or Star Wars discussions and other fun things, but it's 2 episodes a week. So if you are here for Bad Batch, come over and check out our regular show. It's great, and you can find it anywhere where you can get your podcasts. So until next week, this has been Bad Batch, the reaction show, and I'll see you then.